Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking through a couple player props I like on Prizepicks for today's NBA slate on Monday, March the 13th. Now we have a 7-game slate for Monday, so decent sized slate today, guys. A decent amount of props are available right now at the time I'm recording this video. I'm recording this video around 12 p.m. Eastern time, around noon, so you can see all that's available on the board. We have almost all the fantasy score props up. We still don't have props up yet. Fantasy scores at least for the Bucks and Kings game. Bucks props probably won't get posted until we get news on Giannis, but a lot of props are available right now, and I do have 2 picks that I want to share with you guys for today. So as always, we're going to talk through these 2 plays, guys. We're going to share why I like them. Before we do get started breaking down the plays, though, if you guys enjoy these Prizepicks videos, if they help you out, make sure you hit that like button down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not yet, and if you guys are new to Prizepicks, if you've never checked out Prizepicks before, you can sign up. You can use my promo code NOAH. If you look at the bottom of the screen, when you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code, you will get your first deposit matched up to $100. So basically, whatever you deposit, $25, $50, $100, they will double that. So deposit 25, you'll have 50. Deposit 50, you'll have 100. Deposit 100, you'll have 200 to play with. So definitely use that promo code when you do sign up, so that way you get your deposit bonus. And I know I didn't make any videos over the weekend, guys. Obviously, if you guys have been watching the Prizepicks videos, we've not been doing very well lately, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I mean, the last week or two had just been terrible for me for Prizepicks, but hopefully this is the week we can finally get back on track. Just kind of needed to take away some time off the weekend, just get my mind right, get ready for this week, and I'm excited to get back at it, man. I feel good about today. Hopefully today can be the day we finally get back on track. So let's talk through the 2 picks I like for this Monday slate, and we're going to talk about some fantasy score props I like. So the first guy that we're going to talk about, we're going to focus on some star players. There's some star players I like that are in good matchups today, and the first guy that I want to talk about is Anthony Edwards. His fantasy score line sits at 43.5 on Prizepicks. If you look at the last 5 games, he's gone under this line in 4 out of his last 5, but a lot of the games he's gone under, I mean, he's gone under by just a few points, 38.3, 41, 39.8, 39.9. Last game, though, against Brooklyn, that was an overtime game, but I think Anthony Edwards had gone over his fantasy score even before overtime, had a 55.2 fantasy points. I like the over here, and I think this is a really good spot for Anthony Edwards. I think this is a really, really good game environment. If you look at the totals of all the 7 games today, this Atlanta-Minnesota game has a massive total, 245 total right now. The spread is 5.5, so it should be a competitive game. These are 2 teams that play relatively fast. These are 2 teams defensively that are not the greatest defensive teams. In terms of pace, when you look at pace stats, Minnesota's playing at the 5th fastest pace this season. In Atlanta is 10th. So both these teams are top 10 in pace. And then when you look at defensive rating, Atlanta I think ranks 22nd in defensive rating. Minnesota's been better defensively. They're 11th, but this should be a very high-scoring, fast-paced game, and obviously you see that represented in the 245 total. Anthony Edwards this season obviously has been a very productive permanent player, especially since Karl-Anthony Towns got injured, especially since they traded away D'Angelo Russell. His permanent production has been really, really good. His usage has been really good. If you take a look at his numbers this season without Karl-Anthony Towns and without D'Angelo Russell on the floor, they're great. He's got a 33.6% usage rate. He's averaging 1.31 fantasy points per minute, and one thing that's worth noting with Anthony Edwards, I was watching a game recently, and I can't remember which game it was, but I saw that Anthony Edwards, I think since the All-Star break, is leading the league in steals per game. He's just been racking up a ton of steals, and that's huge for Prizepicks, because especially for fantasy score, because if you're not aware with the scoring chart, you do get 3 points for every block and steal, and we've seen Anthony Edwards have games where he gets 4 or 5 steals. Last game against Brooklyn, he had 2 steals and 3 blocks. That's 15 points alone from defensive stats right there. If he can have one of those games where he gets 3, 4 steals, a few blocks, I mean, he can get us 15, 18 fantasy points from defensive stats alone, not even including what he gets from scoring, from rebounding, from getting assists. He's been great on a permanent basis, since Karl-Anthony Towns got injured, since D'Angelo Russell got traded. He's been playing massive minutes. Minnesota, they're fighting for playoff position right now, so they're trying to win every game. They're playing their main guys huge minutes. Last game, Anthony Edwards played 44 minutes in overtime, so he played 39 minutes at the end of regulation. Game before that, he played 34 minutes, but that was a blowout. They lost by over 20 points in that game. Against Sacramento, he did play 36 minutes. Against the Lakers, he played 36 minutes. If this game's close, we can expect Anthony Edwards to play 36, 38 minutes. He should average well over a fantasy point per minute. It's a great game environment. It's a great matchup as well. I don't think Atlanta really has anyone that can slow down Anthony Edwards here. They're probably going to put DeAndre Hunter on him, who's a solid defender, but he's not like an elite defender by any means. And Edwards is such a good player. He's one of these guys that can produce in any matchup. And one more thing I want to mention is that Rudy Gobert is questionable today for the Timberwolves. And if you actually take a look at Anthony Edwards' fantasy points per minute without Karl-Anthony Towns, without Russell, and without Gobert, his per-minute production is even better. His usage rate doesn't really change much at all, but he goes from averaging 1.31 fantasy points per minute to 1.46 fantasy points per minute. And I'm guessing that's probably just because like his rebounding numbers get a boost without Gobert. So if Rudy Gobert does get ruled out today, I think that's going to be even better for Anthony Edwards, and I think Edwards' line probably would get bumped if Gobert got ruled out. So I kind of want to get on it early. Even if Gobert plays, I still think it's a great spot for Ant, and I still like his over fantasy score. But if Gobert gets ruled out, I feel even better about the over 43.5 fantasy score for Anthony Edwards today. So I know it's only hit 1 out of his last 5 games, but this is a great game environment. This is a great matchup. And with Anthony Edwards playing massive minutes right now, I'm going to bank on him going over this fantasy score, especially in what should be a very, very high-scoring game. Now, on the other side, the other prop that I like, it's not going to be in that game, but there's a play that I do like in one of the late-night games. I think there's another star player that's in a pretty good matchup here, and I want to talk about Steph Curry's fantasy score. His line sits at 43.5 in a matchup against the Suns, and this is another over that I like. And Steph Curry, we know what we're getting from him at this point. He's going to play massive minutes if it's a close game, 35, 36 minutes. Golden State, they're another team that needs to win games. I think they're like the 5th seed in the West right now. So obviously they don't, if they keep losing games, they could fall into the play-in. They could lose their spot in the playoffs. So they're trying to win every game right now. We're seeing Steph play massive minutes on a nightly basis. Since he's come back from injury, his minutes have just started to tick up every game. The first game he played in his return from injury, he didn't play like full minutes, but he still played like 32 minutes even in his first game back. You can take a look, March 5th against the Lakers, that was when he returned from injury. He played 32 minutes in that game, had 39.4 fantasy points. Next game, though, against OKC, he pretty much got a full workload, played 35.5 minutes, had 51 fantasy points. Had a tougher matchup against Memphis, who's a pretty good defensive team. Came up just short. I mean, he lost by 0.1 in that game, 42.4 fantasy points. He did play 34.5 minutes in that one. Golden State did lose that game by 21, so I think Curry might have lost some minutes in that game due to blowout. Not sure. I'd have to take a look at the rotations. But then last game against Milwaukee, that was on Saturday night, and Curry played full minutes. That game did go to overtime, but even at the end of regulation, Curry had played like 38 minutes, and he finished with 53.2 fantasy points. He got off to a really slow start. He had like 7 points at halftime last game and then just went nuts in the second half. But what we know we're getting from Curry is massive minutes. We know we're going to get good per-minute production so far this season with the Warriors. I mean, he's leading the team in usage to no surprise, 30.7% usage rate. He's averaging 1.37 fantasy points per minute. If this game's competitive, he's playing 35, 36 minutes, and I think the matchup against the Suns is pretty good. Ever since the Suns traded away Mikal Bridges, they really don't have like a good on-ball defender that can slow down Steph here. I assume Josh Okogie probably guards Steph, and I think that's a matchup that Steph should definitely be able to exploit. He's another one of these guys, though, that can kind of win in any matchup. Like, I really don't get too much – I don't get too worried about matchup when it comes to a guy like Steph Curry. But especially with this Suns team not having Mikal Bridges, I think it's a really plus spot here for Steph. This is another really good game environment. You take a look at the totals for today. Obviously, we talked about how that Atlanta-Minnesota game has a really high total. It's expected to be really high scoring. It's kind of the same case here in this Phoenix-Golden State game. 236 total in this one, 4.5-point spread. Golden State is playing at home today, and they have played it seems like they've played a lot better at home. They've been a lot better at putting up points at home. So I think this game has a lot of high-scoring upside. And Curry's played the Suns 3 times this season. He had one massive game against Phoenix. Then he had a couple down games against them. He had 69.8 fantasy points in one game against the Suns, 50 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. There was one game, it was very early on in the season. I think it might have been like the first game of the season. He had 43.4 fantasy points, so obviously he lost by 0.1. But it is worth noting that game was a blowout. He only played 30 minutes in that game. And then their most recent game against Phoenix, he had just 31.7 fantasy points, but he only played 31 minutes in that game as well. But the game where he played full minutes against Phoenix, he went nuts, had 69.8 fantasy points. Again, I love the matchup for Steph. I love the game environment. He's just playing so well right now. The minutes are through the roof, and we've seen Steph be way better this season at getting rebounds, getting assists, getting defensive stats Normally, normally for Steph to put up more than 43.5 fantasy points, he would have to score like 30 plus points, but that's not the case so far this season. He's been going over this line even when he only has like 20 something points, because he's been getting rebounds, he's been getting assists, he's been getting defensive stats, and that's something that we like to see. We want to get guys that can contribute in all categories. So that's the other play that I do like for today is Steph Curry, more than 43.5 fantasy score. And one more thing I do want to mention, since we've been talking about Steph and like his minutes, him getting full minutes now, let's just assume this game is competitive. He's probably playing 35, 36 minutes. If you take a look at this season in the games where Steph has played 35 minutes or more, he's over this fantasy score line in 15 out of those 20 games. So a large majority of the time when he plays 35, 36 minutes, he's going to finish with more than 43.5 fantasy score. He's done it in 15 out of 20 games this season. But yeah, that'll do it for today's video, guys. These are two picks I do like for today, kind of taking a first look at the board right now. Going to be taking Anthony Edwards and Steph Curry over 43.5 fantasy score. Feel pretty good about these two picks. Want to rely on some star players today. I know recently and especially lately, I've been kind of looking at like role players, trying to find guys that are seeing increased opportunity. Today, I'm kind of looking at some star players, just trying to find some star players and really good matchups. And these are two spots I do like for both Steph Curry and Anthony Edwards. Hopefully these two picks can come through for us. I know lately the picks have been like all over the place. We just haven't really been able to get on a roll lately, but I took the weekend off from videos, just try to get my mind right for this week, and let's try and lock in this week, make some money. Hope you guys enjoyed this video though. Make sure if you did enjoy, you hit that like button down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And if you guys again are new to the channel, you've never checked out Prizepicks before, you can sign up for Prizepicks. You can use my promo code Noah. When you do sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code, you will get your first deposit matched up to $100. Check out Prizepicks if you have not yet. Take a look at all the props they have available for today's NBA slate. And as always, if you want to tell me, you can do so. But make sure to use that promo code when you do sign up. But good luck tonight, guys. Thanks as always for watching the videos, for supporting the content. Hopefully, we can all make some money tonight, and I will see you guys in the next one.